It's a funny old time of year, you know, because everybody is starting to talk about autumn. And I come out here in my Mediterranean garden and I look at these white mallows just hanging on, all right, a bit drenched by the late summer rains, and that's what I tell myself. It isn't actually autumn yet. I've still got summer flowers, so it's late summer, and that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Even though I do have to think a little bit about autumn when it comes to my lawn. It needs a bit of TLC if it's to get through the winter and to do you well next summer as well. And the first thing to do is to get out either your wire tooth rake or one of these plastic springbok rakes, which I find very useful, and just comb the surface of the lawn, pulling out the dead grass of summer. The good thing about this plastic rake is that it's quite gentle. It doesn't pull up the soil too much. So for a lawn that isn't in too bad a condition with too much thatch underneath it, it's very useful. But if you've got really thick thatch in your lawn, and this is too much like hard work, get one of these. Either buy one or hire one. An electric lawn raker. Make sure the cable's well out of the way, and you turn it on and simply hoover your lawn. Now the important thing here is that you set it fairly high. If you set those teeth too low, you can really rip the heart out of your grass. And keep a very close eye on it while you're doing it, so that you can see when most of the grass and moss has come out that it's time to stop or move on to another piece. Now, if your lawn takes as much wear and tear as mine does during the course of the summer, and there's many feet over it, you'll find it gets very compacted, and then when it does start to rain, pools of water sit on the surface. The way to avoid that is to spike it and relieve that compaction. You can use a garden fork, stab it in, push it a bit deeper with your foot, 4 to 6 inches, and wiggle it around. And do this about every 6 inches over the surface of the soil, and you'll see the ground begin to lift. Air is getting in there, letting the water drain away. But if compaction is really serious, all this is doing is compacting it even more sideways. So you need one of these, a hollow tine aerator, which actually removes cores of soil. It does take a bit of pushing in, and you do need to press fairly hard on it. You can see the cores of soil coming to the surface. They can be quite difficult to use these on stony ground. If your soil's reasonable, they really do work. How do you stop these holes from filling up again? Well, the answer lies in the soil mixture. This is a mixture of old potting compost and really sharp sand. And if you sprinkle that fairly generously over the surface and then sweep it in to the interstices with a yard broom, fairly coarse one, or a birch broom, a besom. Anything just to get it off the surface. It'll look a bit brown for a while, but soon the rain will wash it in, and it really will improve your ground. Now you can then apply an autumn fertiliser dressing if you like. Some of them have moss killers in them, but you don't want to apply it in rain. Apply it when it's dry, then it can start to do its work. If no rainfall comes, within 2 days you can water it all in. And that way you really do give a lawn that's worked hard through the year a bit of care and attention. Just like Rachel de Thames has been doing on her garden right the way through the year. It's the one that was once neglected and overgrown, but now it's almost ready to go it alone.
Well, it's almost 6 months now since my first visit to this garden, and after tackling some waist-high weeds, a scrappy-looking conifer, some very overgrown shrubs and an asbestos wall, I finally got round to rebuilding these steps and eventually planting up the garden in June. Well, I couldn't resist one final visit to see how the garden and the plants are doing. I'll finish the hedge later. Well, steps are still standing. And the vine, Vitis vinifera purpurea, has actually got grapes on it. And nasturtiums are looking really good. And this rose, which is unnamed, it was here when we started, is looking much better. It's in full flower, and we've got lots of nice new growth from the base. The wands of the Verbena bonariensis and the morning glory on the obelisk will both still be in flower till November before setting seed. And the other seeds that we sowed earlier this year, the pot marigolds and the California poppies, are both looking beautiful. And this is the hydrangea we rescued from the top end of the garden. It's not only survived, but it's flowered beautifully. It's not all good news though, with something nasty lurking in the borders, the dreaded mare's tail. This particular horror story has many different names: horsetail, scouring rush, even Boy Scout scouring pad. But those names don't make it any less than what it is. A really pernicious prehistoric plant that dates back more than 350 million years. The green branching stems appear from an extensive creeping rhizome system, which can penetrate 6 feet or more into the soil. And although these sterile stems die back in winter, their food reserves are stored in small tubers and in the rhizome system. They're very gritty and contain silica, so it's hard for conventional systemic weed killers to penetrate the plant. The best thing to do is to really bruise and crush the stems and then apply some glyphosate. And you'll have to be persistent. Just keep on doing it, and who knows, eventually you might win. Well, this is the perfect time of year for taking stock, having a really good look at what's working in the garden. Now, this area has clearly gone on strike, but there's no need for it to be looking so dull. So I've been down to the garden centre, had a look at what's in flower, and I've chosen some late flowering perennials to really give this area a boost. I love crocosmia for a bit of drama and some really zingy colour in the late summer border. And this one is called Babylon. It's got wonderful large orange-red flowers with a sort of darker throat. And I think the 3 of them are going to make some real impact. Aster Monk is one of the best varieties for a really spectacular display that's going to last until October. Aster in Latin means star, and these flowers are beautifully rayed in a clear lavender blue. But in front of the crocosmia, they'll look stunning. Japanese anemones are one of nature's final flings in the late summer border. They throw up their flowers at the top of these fine but robust stems. This variety, Whirlwind, has lovely semi-double white flowers, and it'll really thrive here in this dappled shade. There, told you that'd look better. One thing you learn when you first take up the trowel is that there are no miracle makeovers. Some of it's really hard work and demands persistence, but most of it is really pleasurable. Gardens should evolve, not just with the seasons, but with the years. The reality is, no garden is ever truly finished, and this one will be no exception.
It's potting shed weather. You can hear the rain on the roof. But it's not bad at this time of year to be confined to barracks, because it means you can get on with those jobs that make sure you get a brighter winter and spring. One word: bulbs. And particularly in pots and containers, planted now, they'll give you portable colour to brighten up your doorstep or your terrace or your patio come winter and spring. Take a good look at containers, because there's a great variety of them around now, and it's nice to be a bit different. Something like this vibrant, opaque plastic one, you can almost see through it. It comes with its own little saucer come drip tray, and it just clips into that. Great little colour there for some bright yellow bulbs. If you want to be modern, go for galvanised, very chic-y, very minimalist, but do make sure that you punch drainage holes in the bottom. Often they come without them, and of course if they do, they'll just fill up with winter rains. But I want a bit of stability, and I'm going for the good old traditional clay pot, because I also need a bit of depth for what I'm about to do. Now, the good thing about this hand-thrown pot is it's got a decent sized drainage hole in the base. The bigger the pot, the more drainage you need to shift more water. Crocks over that hole in the base, concave side downwards, and then just a good scoop, about 4 inches of this soilless compost based on bark. lightly firm it down with your fingers, because I'm planting bulbs in here in layers. Nifty little wheeze. You can even get your colour schemes done for you nowadays. Look at this. Spring bulbs, shades of yellow. Crocuses, dwarf narcissi, that lovely variety tete-a-tete with those twin nodding flowers, and a yellow tulip. This is a very handy box for me because in that pot I want to get a succession of flowers right the way through the spring, not just one show, but a continuous one. There are my crocuses, there's my tulips, and there are my narcissi. Now I'm starting off in the bottom with the tulips because they can be planted the deepest, they're latest to come up and flower, and they'll push up through the others when they've finished. 5 bulbs, that should do nicely. Space them out on the surface of that compost there. 1 in the middle, 4 around the outside. And then a helping of compost on the top of that. A couple of big handfuls onto the narcissi. Here we can get about 7 of these in, spaced out once more on the surface. You can cram them really as close together as you want. They're a greedy bunch and they'll elbow one another out the way. Once they're in, more compost on the top of them. Again, so that the bulbs are covered by about 2 inches. And crocuses on the top of that. Now, crocuses are not bulbs, they're corms. What's the difference? Well, I'll show you with the aid of a sharp knife. A crocus is a corm, and a corm, cutting it in half, you'll see it's solid. A corm is a condensed stem. The leaves are these papery, scaly things on the outside. You can see where they're growing there. Now, if you cut through a daffodil bulb, you will see that, in fact, it's a condensed shoot. You can see the scale leaves coming off the base plate, which is the stem, and there's the flower bud in the middle. Botany lesson over. Crocuses on the top. And you can cram as many of these in as you can. And if you want to know which way up to put them, it's the little pointy end uppermost and the sunken bit down. I know it sounds obvious, but it might not be to some. And then when you've done that with them, cover it up with more compost, lightly firmed in with your fingers. And that way you end up with this display, which starts with the crocuses, scissor off their dead foliage, up come the narcissi, scissor off that foliage, up come the tulips. 3 displays from one pot. Now that can't be bad. It's value for money and versatility that you look for in life. That's what I think Carole Boyd's got.
It's not often that I arrive to visit a garden by boat. The woman wielding the oars so expertly is actress Carole Boyd, perhaps better known as Linda Snell of the Archers, whose pretty little garden backs onto the Thames at Shepperton. Carole, you've got this most wonderful Thames view at the bottom of your garden. How did that affect the way you planned the layout?
Well, although the garden is small, it doesn't feel small because of having this great expanse of water and the view. So I've tried to incorporate the watery theme by having a series of curves, and that offsets the rather hard lines of the house. The first thing I did was to plant this rose bed, which is mainly David Austin roses, which I love, because they have such a wonderful, fascinating way of combining the repeat flowering of a modern rose with the scent and form and habit of a lovely old-fashioned bush rose, which my garden would normally be too small for, you see.
Yeah.
This is one of my
lovely,
real
isn't it?
favourites. This is Sharifa Asma.
Lovely.
And this
one?
is lovely.
Oh.
This is Heritage,
Yes.
also David Austin.
What about the white one that on your
the white
obelisk?
one, that was in the house when we first came, in the garden when we first came. And it's called Swan, and it was in a pitiful state when we took over the garden. So I gave it lots of TLC, and I love it trained up that obelisk.
Yes.
The clematis this is the best it's been, a 12-year-let. Of course, when I planted it, I'm not very good with colour combinations. I don't sort of think ahead. I just think I've got to have that, and the hell with the future. And of course, the plums. It's a Victoria plum tree, so you've got a 12-year-let against deep purple plums. Some people say that's quite appropriate, but it gets lost.
So on your shady side,
Yes.
you've got lots of interesting foliage things.
Well, when I first came here, there was a pond here, which seemed a bit redundant on the river.
It's a bit sad.
So
really.
we drained that and made a peat garden. You see this little conifer, it was small and perfect, and now it's got big and solid, and it's created a hole behind it. So again, I'm going to take that out eventually. And this is lovely. I love this little ground cover spirea. I can't remember what it's called, but I found it at Hampton Court a couple of years ago. And it's just such a miniature, isn't it? A miniature of the real thing.
Yes.
So this is called Guinea,
Gorgeous,
and have a
isn't
sniff, Gay. Isn't it gorgeous?
It's
It's like wine, isn't it?
Yeah, lovely.
I love it
Beautiful, rich.
because it started life in a former garden in a pot, and because it was a fibrous pot, all I had to do was cut it down so that the plant kind of spread, and it's never flowered as well.
Do you move plants a lot? You
I do now, yes. I've had to because I've made so many mistakes. I've had to be ruthless in moving them. This is my rockery. Now, why I have a rockery facing north, I don't know, but it's just how it happened. The euphorbias are taking over. I keep having to pull them out. And that's another little ground cover rose from the County series.
It's pretty.
That's Avon.
3 sort of shades.
Yes,
the yellow,
isn't it
the cream,
lovely?
and the white.
Yes,
yeah.
yellow roses tend to do that, don't they?
Yeah.
They sort of go on developing their colour.
You seem to know all your plants. It's almost as though they were friends.
Well, yes, it's because I've treated them so badly. I do feel quite committed to them, you know.
Summer bedding that's past its best can now be ripped up and consigned to the compost heap, and the ground enriched with a bit of compost and fertiliser for spring bedding. Keep a really close eye on houseplants and greenhouse pot plants, pulling off any leaves that are fading and flowers that are going over so that grey mould doesn't get a foothold. And if you're growing tender perennials like penstemons in your garden, it's worth taking a few cuttings at this time of year as an insurance policy. Root them in sandy compost and overwinter them in a frost-free greenhouse or frame. Hanging baskets have been brightening up British gardens since Victorian times, but we've never been to the lengths that the Belgians go to. I only hope Ivan Hicks has got a head for heights.
Pavement cafes, medieval architecture, boat trips, people watching, people looking at the flowers, flower beer. It all adds up to a great place to hang out here in Ghent, the Belgian city of flowers. Like most cities in the summer, Ghent likes to splash out to show itself off to its best advantage. But this summer, there's a gent from Ghent who's going to let it really all hang out. Jos de Troyer introduced the city of Ghent to hanging baskets 5 years ago. He now plants and waters the hanging baskets for 20 towns in Belgium. With a team of himself and 2 others, he is responsible for 4,500 hanging baskets.
I went to England, and when I was in Canterbury, I saw the hanging baskets, and they were very, very beautiful. And I thought that's something for Ghent also, and we did it.
Jos is not a man to do things by halves. He wanted to set a record here in this historic centre of Ghent, and with what else but the biggest hanging basket in the world. And boy, hasn't he done well. It's made the Guinness Book of Records. It weighs 45 tonnes, he's used 32,000 plants, and it's 10.5 metres across. Supported by a steel structure 26 metres high, Jos included elevated walkways to allow you to look down on the basket and to view the lovely city of Ghent. I love the colour scheme, Jos. You know, tell me about the plants and the planting.
The blue and the white are salvias.
Yeah.
The pink and the orange ones are zinnias. And the yellows are gazania. For the sides I used sulfinias, that's these petunias I used for.
They're continuous flowering, aren't they?
Yeah, they're continuous, and you got a lot of colours in it, and that is very important. You need a colourful basket.
And the asparagus is like moss, isn't it?
It's like moss, and between the light pink, it's beautiful.
Yes, yes. Did you do the planting yourself?
Yeah, I did completely myself.
And how long is it up for?
Well, we started the 20th of April, and it stands till the 1st of October.
Oh, we've certainly got the weather to grow decent hanging baskets. Is there a town or a city that's up to the challenge of bringing the record back to Britain? It's size that's proving a bit of a problem with these 3 birch trees planted outside my house. It's one of the very best trees for bark. This is betula jaquemontii. Wonderful creamy white texture there to it. But what's happening now after 12 years is they're beginning to shade the house. And the moment has come where I'm wondering if it's time they came out. Well, I don't want to get rid of them just yet. What I do want to do though is lift the crowns, take off these bottom branches. If you prune birch trees before September, there's a great danger that they can almost bleed to death because the sap stream is so strong. But at this time of year, it's slowed down, they shouldn't bleed, and you can start removing some of these lower branches. First of all, make an undercut. And behind that, an uppercut. And that gets rid, you can see it's breaking along the line there, that gets rid of the weight. So this little stub here isn't going to tear down when you cut it off. A little bit of an undercut on that just to stop the bark tearing. And then really, with your pruning saw, as flush to the trunk as possible, start cutting down on the top of it. And it will then just flip off. Look at that, clean as a whistle. I'm going to do that on all the rest of these. Don't you love gardening in the rain? Whatever the weather this weekend, cool. Enjoy your garden.
UK TV Style becomes home on Thursday the 30th of April. You can find it in the lifestyle section of the EPG. Stay tuned for more information.